Hello, this is Ben Runo, and this is going to be my review of the Motorola Moto X. This phone was originally launched for AT&T back in August of last year, and the carrier had exclusive rights to Moto Maker, the customizability website. But thankfully now, no matter what carrier you have, whether AT&T, Sprint, or T-Mobile, you can still customize it. And the customizability, while really cool, there's a ton more to talk about this device, from the design to the build quality and the hardware. Let's start off with design. This phone was designed to be held in one hand and be great for one-handed usability, and in that it really excels. It feels just about the right weight, and it's able to have a 4.7-inch screen in such a small phone, which is really great. And on the back you get a soft touch rubber finish, which makes it feel more secure in your hand. Not to mention the Motorola dimple, which for some reason every time I held the phone my pointer finger went right to it. Well, the key word here is efficiency. And while the Moto X has a 4.7-inch display, it's still smaller than the Nokia Lumia 920, which has a 4.5-inch display. But there is one key area where these phones are similar, and that's in their design language, both having curved backs, which makes them much easier to hold. Next, let's talk about that display, one of many areas in this phone's spec sheet that made people go nuts when it was released. It's a 4.7-inch 1280 by 720p AMOLED display. Now, I have to say, while this phone's screen resolution is lower than other flagship smartphones on the market, it is still quite a good display. You have the normal AMOLED problems, such as white colors turning out to be more like yellow, but then you also get all the advantages of an AMOLED display, such as allowing for a slimmer device with very deep blacks, punchy colors, and even increased battery life. With that, I'd like to move on to software, one of the most useful which is glanceable notifications. From when you pick up the phone, you can jump right into a notification and respond, which is incredibly quick and useful. Just as well, Motorola Assist can read your text messages out loud while you're in the car and allow you to respond without taking your eyes off the road, which is an incredibly useful feature. And seeing as how Motorola was owned by Google during this phone's development, I've noticed Gmail messages coming quicker than any other phone on this device. And lastly, you guessed it.
And lastly, there's OK Google Now, which launches
OK Google Now, which launches Android voice search and command functions. What's nice about Google Now's integration on this device is that it can work from within any application as opposed to other Android devices. The last topic we have to talk about here is the camera, and while it's perfectly capable of taking fairly good photos, too often it's a miss instead of a hit. The problem isn't that the camera is incapable of taking good pictures, because I've taken several. The problem is that in the pursuit of a zero shutter lag shooting experience, they made this phone take blurry pictures. It almost seems eager to take blurry pictures, ones that would make anybody shake their head in disappointment. But on the other hand, the front-facing camera is actually very well done. It's very accurate and even does well in low light. But let's end on a high note. Let's talk about the battery life. The battery life on the Moto X has been particularly superb for a phone with such an average size battery. I haven't found myself out of battery before the end of the day yet, and for my use that's actually quite impressive. So, do I think you should buy this phone? The answer is a resounding maybe, and I know that sounds confusing, but here's the deal. I really love everything about this phone, except the rear camera could be better. And a but is never something someone wants to hear when buying a phone on a 2-year contract. My solution? Carry 2 phones or simply carry a phone and a camera if you need a good shooter. Otherwise, if you discount the camera issue, this is one of my top phones from 2014. So what do I give this phone? I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Positives being great build quality and overall design, as well as great software improvements and solid support from carriers with updates. Negatives being, you guessed it, the camera, and unfortunately, the typing experience wasn't as good as I've had on some other phones running different operating systems. But if you're using Android, that's a choice you've likely already made. Well, that's about it for me, guys. That was my review of the Motorola Moto X. Please don't forget to subscribe, and have a nice day.